Hello everyone and welcome back to the 2020 Candidates Tournament, or not. As many of you have probably heard already, the FIDE Candidates Tournament has been cancelled. Well, not really cancelled, but more of an adjournment. It will be continued at a better day. So for now, they are postponing it, and here is the official statement from FIDE. So let's just check that out before we check out this game from round 7. So the official statement from FIDE website: today the government of the Russian Federation announced that starting March 27, 2020, Russia interrupts air traffic with other countries without indicating any time frames. FIDE cannot continue the tournament without guarantees for the players and officials safe and timely return home. In this situation and on the basis of clause 1.5 rules of candidates tournament, the FIDE president decided to stop the tournament. It will be continued later, with the exact dates to be announced as soon as the global situation related to the COVID-19 pandemic will allow. As it was stipulated by the special rules agreed with the players before the start of the event, the results of the 7 rounds played remain valid, and the tournament will be resumed in the same composition, starting with the games of the 8th round. FIDE is grateful to the players, officials, volunteers, and the entire team of organizers, including the Chess Federation of Russia and the main partner of the tournament, Simaland. Sincerely, Arkady Dvorkovich, FIDE president. So there we have it. That's basically it. It's really it's a shame for Timur Rajabov, because basically he asked for the tournament to be postponed. FIDE said no. They gave the spot to Maxim Vashiolagrov, who is now leading the tournament, and now the tournament is forcefully postponed, and it's just terrible. I mean, however they play this out, it's always gonna be what if this happened, what if this happened, what if Rajabov maybe played and then he won, and now you have Maxim Vashiolagrov leading the tournament. What if he wins? Did he actually win it? Because, well, it's just a whole lot of mess. But that's for someone else to worry about. We are here to check out the games from round 7, and here it is. Ding opens with d4, and we do have a nice photo of the two of them, so let's just check it out. There we have it. Ding again with his little blue chair, Alekseenko with the well, normal green one. So let's check it out. Now we have knight to f6, Ding replies with c4 and e6, and here Ding doesn't feel like going for the Nimzo here, or maybe even a Bogo Indian, or maybe some Ragozin stuff. So instead g3, he goes for the Catalan. And okay, bishop to b4 with check, bishop to d2, and now bishop back to e7. That white's bishop is awkwardly placed on d2. Bishop to g2, and now d5. The usual move. We have knight to f3, and both players just castle. We have castles, knight b to d7, and queen to c2. The continuing development, we have c6 strengthening the center, and now bishop to f4. Getting the bishop to a more useful square. We have b6 preparing to develop the light square bishop, and now rook to d1 as the bishop is coming to, well, to this diagonal. So the rook will be useful there. Also, you're aligning it with the queen. Bishop still to a6, threatening to capture the pawn here, and knight b to d2, defending the c4 pawn. Rook to c8, developing, and now rook a to c1, also developing, and now knight to h5, going after Ding's bishop on f4. Ding goes back, bishop to e3, and Alekseenko repeats, saying, if you want to go back, I'm just gonna repeat. And there is one game where such a repetition happened, but then white deviated. It was in 2017, Kalifman versus Efimenko, that ended in a draw, but here Ding right away goes for bishop to g5. And it is a new move in the position, so already as a move 14, we have a completely new game. So bishop back to b7 now, and knight to e5 by Ding. Here we have a series of trades. Knight captures on e5, d captures, now comes knight to g4, bishop captures, queen captures, and now knight to f3, guarding the e5 pawn. And Alekseenko says, okay, time for that pawn to go. He goes f6. We have e captures, knight captures, and now, while you could go for some knight e5 and f4 ideas, Ding decides to go with bishop to h3 instead, putting pressure on this, well, for the moment, weak pawn here, and you cannot advance it because the rook would hang on c8. So first, rook c to e8. And now, while preparing for this e5 idea, Ding goes queen to a4, saying that, okay, I'm interested in grabbing your a7 pawn, what do you play here? And Alekseenko plays the absolute best c5, and here you really have to ask yourselves, do you capture on a7 or maybe not? What's preventing me from capturing this pawn? Is it a free pawn? Are these two pawns free? What's going on here? Now, to answer this question, we would have to probably make a separate video, because capturing on a7 is so complicated. It would certainly be a job for someone like the Magician of Riga. But I will just show one of the lines, as it's just crazy. For example, if you capture the pawn, queen to c7, now just threatening a rook to a8, which would pick up the queen, and here white goes knight to d4. And now it looks a bit crazy, but point is that if the knight is captured, then you can have captures here. You open up an attack towards the queen, queen e7, now you advance the pawn, you want to get the queen away from the defense of the bishop, you again move the queen, and now let's say rook to c7, and the black's position will just be extremely difficult to play. You are regaining your piece back, and it's just bad. So what you would have to do after queen to c7, knight d4, you would have to go for rook to a8, stick with your plan, but now knight captures on e6, attacking the black queen. The black queen moves, and now you have c captures on d5. We have knight captures on d5, and now queen captures on b7. Really insane stuff. Queen captures on b7, now knight captures on f8, king captures on f8, and now bishop to g2. Now preparing to win the knight also, and it's impossible to defend it, because after rook here, you're just gonna go rook to d2, double up here, and you're gonna win the knight. Whatever black plays, rook cd1, let's say g5, and you will now pick up the knight. Bishop captures, and after the queen moves, now you're gonna just fortify the position with e4, and it's a really weird, well, a good position for both players, because you have a bishop and rook for a queen, plus you're up 2 pawns, and it should be playable for both sides. Really complicated stuff. You don't have to worry about ideas like h4, because even if captures, it's not a problem. You always have the light square bishop to guard this diagonal, so it would be really crazy. But this is just one of the lines that can happen after queen captures here. So like I said, this would be definitely a job for the Magician of Riga. So Ding first prepares it with b4, simply saying that, okay, now if you capture, then I capture, and then I have the c file for my rook ready, which is what happens in the game. Alekseenko has to decide whether he wants to advance to d4, or he wants to accept Ding's challenge, and he accepts the challenge. Queen captures here, now the pawn is guarded, but now queen captures on a7, and now queen to c7 will be met with pawn captures here, and then just kicking the queen away from c7, similar to the line we've shown. So knight to e4 instead, now going for knight to c3 to e2, and now Ding goes queen captures on b6. We have knight to c3, now going after this check while the rook is under attack. Rook to e1, and now d captures on c4, creating these two very advanced pawns, and also you are pressuring the knight here. So for example, knight captures with check, removes the defender of the knight, you pick up the knight. Good things can happen here. And Ding can't really allow these two to remain like this. He plays a3. He wants to well, either create some weaknesses, or of course you cannot capture because the knight hangs. So here you might go for knight captures on e2, but again, it's a really crazy line. For example, if knight captures on e2, then rook captures, bishop captures on f3, rook captures on e6, and now queen to g5 with an attack on the rook. Rook captures on c4, and now rook to b8. You kick away the queen, put a rook behind your passed pawn. Queen to e3, you trade queens, captures, and now b3. Alekseenko would be down a pawn, but he has this incredibly passed b pawn. So here Ding would have to go for the pawn, rook to c1, b2, and now well, probably bishop to e6 with check, king to h8, and rook to b1, stop the pawn. And it would be a better position for Alekseenko, regardless of Ding being up a pawn, because this pawn can't survive for very long, and it's just better for Alekseenko. Whether he would be able to do something about it, that's well, that would have been for him to show. But okay, after a3, Alekseenko first decides for bishop to d5. He strengthens the c4 pawn. And now, only after queen captures on b4, we have queen captures on b4, a captures, and now knight captures on e2 with check. rook captures, and now not bishop captures, because if bishop captures, then you allow bishop captures on e6 with check, and after king to h8, now you pick up, well, first rook e3, you kick away the bishop, and then you will be able to pick up this pawn. So of course this would be much better for Ding. So instead, rook captures on f3, and now bishop to g2. We have rook back to f8, and now rook to d2, threatening to pick up the bishop here. And here Alekseenko has to decide whether he wants to keep the pressure or he wants to trade everything with rook to b8. So here Ding decided Alekseenko decided for rook to b8. He goes after this pawn, and now Ding just trades. We have bishop captures, pawn captures, rook captures, and rook captures on b4. And now rook to c2, not allowing the pass pawn to cross the second rank. We have rook to c8. Alekseenko also puts a rook behind the pass pawn, and now king f1. Ding starts bringing the king into the game. We have c3, king to e2, and now rook to b7. Asking Ding, what do you play here? Rook to d3, he goes after the pawn here, but now rook to b2, saying that, okay, now if you capture, obviously I'm just winning because of rook captures, I'm up a whole rook. So after king to d1, defending the rook, Alekseenko goes rook b1, check. We have king e2, rook to b2, again offering the same idea. King d1, and after rook to b1 check, it was in this position on move 40 after reaching time control that the players agreed to a draw. As there's no way to continue pushing here, it's equal material, and although Alekseenko has an advanced passed pawn, the two rooks are making it impossible for him. If rook h1, you just play h4, and then you're not in time to get back, you will lose your c3 pawn. And if you try something else, let's say rook to b3, just keep the game going, then white can completely cut you off with rook to d7. Your king is not getting any more active. And if rook b2 now, king d3. Now you could go rook to f8, you go after the pawn, f4. If g5, we just trade everything. Captures on c3, you're gonna get captures here, and rook captures on h2. And we end up in this position where you can defend either with the rooks or maybe king e4, just defend the pawn. And it's completely equal material, and it's justifiable that the game ended in a draw after rook to b1 check on move 40. So really crazy game. Like I said, there was this maybe option of queen captures on a7 for Ding, but it's impossible to calculate what happens after queen captures on a7. You would just burn incredible amounts of time and probably mess up somewhere. And there was this 1.4 for Alekseenko after a3. He could have gone for this knight captures on e2, which would definitely give him advantage, but both of them were reluctant to act on it, and of course in the end it ended in a draw. So that's the last game we'll be showing from the Candidates Tournament in quite a while, until the situation in the world picks up and we can continue with the Candidates Tournament with the same setup, of course, but you know, we are continuing as usual. We are continuing the Polymorphy saga. Maybe we can throw a tournament or two, or a stream or two. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments. And also, yeah, what's your opinion on this whole thing regarding the postponement of the FIDE Candidates Tournament, and on this whole, well, now situation that basically everything happened the way Rajabov wanted it to happen, but it just happened without him because FIDE was reluctant to immediately postpone the tournament. Really, I don't know. It's a really tough spot for FIDE to be in. But yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Lars Roger Billings, Lucian Corduneanu, David Kaiser, Ante Kraljevic, and Isaac Garzon for contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Polymorphy saga, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and of course, whatever else happens in the world of chess. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.